Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm Ashley, your host. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey guys, what's up? Something has really been on my mind a lot lately because we are coming around this date for me that is very significant in my life, very important, and also very hard. And so I want to warn you before you listen to this episode that it is a trigger episode. If you have experienced loss and you don't want to go back to that place, you don't want to, you're not ready to talk about it, you're not ready to, for whatever reason, hear about it. I just want to let you know beforehand that this is going to be one of those episodes, and I know that they're sad and they're not upbeat and they're not the type of conversations that we would normally gravitate to. But the truth is, if we don't ever gravitate towards these conversations, we're going to continue to feel alone. We're going to continue to just deal with this stuff on our own. That is the whole reason I created this podcast, was so we didn't have to do that. And so as I'm processing, all I could think about was sharing this with you guys, and how if I had somebody else to talk to, going through this to process that could relate to me, that could, calm some of these feelings that I have a year later, it would be a lot easier. But so if at least one person that hears this can find hope or relation or comfort in whatever way, because I really don't know in these circumstances if this kind of conversation is comforting at all, but I just want to give you a heads up that this is where I'm at. This is what we're heading into today. So hang on and let's get to it. So a year ago, almost to the day, it was September 25th of 2017. We had just found out that we were pregnant, and that in and of itself is a miracle. I actually didn't think I would be able to get pregnant. I have an autoimmune disease. We have 2 kids already. If you guys are normal listeners, you know that, and they are 8 and 5. And so this was kind of an out of the blue, I knew something was up kind of thing though, and it wasn't planned, but we weren't exactly not trying. We just thought it wasn't possible. And so lo and behold, the good old pregnant pea stick said that, things were otherwise different. And so I made this big reveal to my husband about it because it was such a surprise. And then not too long, maybe a week after that, or 2 weeks at the most, I started spotting. And this time around, I had hyperemesis, which is really, really bad morning sickness 24/7, and it doesn't go away, and it's really, really life-threatening. It's really scary because you're also not taking care of yourself, but you're also taking care of you're not just taking care of yourself, but you're also taking care of somebody else inside of you, but at the same time you can't get any nutrients inside of you because you are so ill. And so I had that with both of my children, and so this time around I felt great. I was really excited that I was going to be able to experience pregnancy from a different perspective and enjoy it and enjoy your body and not be so sick. And then it wasn't too long, like I said, that time went by and I started spotting, and then it didn't stop, and we in fact lost our baby. So a year later, which is now, I'm kind of reflecting, and I didn't really know what I was going to feel or what I was going to experience a year later, because we lost our baby at what they guesstimated was 8 weeks. And I know a lot of you guys have gone further in your term than that, and you build this bond because your body's changing, and internally you can just feel it. And so I think for all of us, our reactions and our feelings are different dependent on the situation, the time length, the emotions and the feelings involved. And for me, I had no idea what I was going to expect. I had no idea what I was going to feel. I just knew that this day was coming. Really about probably 3 months ago, I just knew that, this time and this day was coming, and that I was trying to prepare myself for really just anything, to be okay, to be normal, to have a little hurt, but to, go through the day. And I'm not real sure because at the time that I'm recording this, today is Saturday, so we're like 3 days away from the actual date. And today, in and of itself, has been really emotional for me. Just kind of reflecting back on that day, and I can remember the stuff that was happening and the way that the day went and how everything happened and all the feelings and all the words that were said. And so just rehashing that has been emotional for me. But I think that there's a lot of feelings that you go through a year later. And the first one that comes to mind is just regret. Like, I think the first one that really sticks out to me is how we just have to choose to do what we think is right in the moment. And for me, that was after the loss. We really struggled with, do we try again? Because this was an accident, and this was kind of something that just happened, and I didn't get sick. But with hyperemesis, you never know. You're like rolling the dice every time whether or not you're going to get sick or not. So we personally chose not to try again for that reason, that if we tried again, we're still rolling the dice of me having to be on bed rest the entire time and have home health care, and also discerning between that feeling of, do we really want to bring another child into this world, or are we bringing another child into this world solely to heal the wounds from our loss? And so, like I said, I think there's a lot of feelings, after you experience something like this, and you just have to choose to do what you think is right in the moment and hope that you'll be okay in the future. And so what I kind of struggle with today is, wow, like thinking, had we tried, we would have almost 1-year-old by now, or, and so I think that can really mess you up, is having that feeling of what if, and maybe there is no regret for the things that you do, but only what you don't. And so if you find yourself in this season and you're trying to discern whether or not you guys try again, or if you're coming up on a date like this, like I am, and you're wondering what if, I think that it's totally normal, and not to beat yourself up for the decisions that you made, because you were hurting and you were going through a lot, and you were just trying to make the best decision for your body, yourself, your family, that moment in time. And like I said, we can only do the best that we can and that we feel is right in that moment. And that's a heavy moment. And so as I'm telling this to myself, I want to tell it to you guys, not to be so hard on yourself for making what you maybe now feel is the wrong decision, or maybe you feel really good in that decision. And that's okay. Like, either way, it's okay. Nobody writes the booklet on how you handle these things, and there is no wrong or right way. We're just all trying to make it through this journey, and it is hard, and it's not easy. So I think there's a lot of confusion, second guessing, and guilt wrapped up in yourself after you have a miscarriage. So here's what I've learned, and it's that these feelings will come in waves, and it will come at random times, and no one's to say if it's a year later, if it's 5 years later, that you're wrong for having those feelings, that it still comes up, because this is a part of you. This is something that once it happens, you feel instant connection. You feel all these, hormones on top of it all, right? So like, no one is to say if you're still having feelings, if you still get upset, if you still have triggers 6 years from now, 10 years from now, that you're wrong. So if you're still new, like if it's a new thing, it's 3 months ago, you are right. I feel like you have every right to cry, to scream, to do whatever it is that you need to do, because it's your body, it's your life, it's your journey, and it's okay. Also, this has taught me to be very careful with my words towards other women and other couples, is that I don't immediately jump to the question of, when are you going to have more kids, or are you going to have children? Because you just don't ever know where somebody's at in their journey or what they're dealing with. And I know if somebody asked me these questions, I could handle it now, and I would be honest, and I have no problem doing so. But I think for some of us, and maybe that was on a good day, so if you ask me on a bad day, I might not react the same way. And so I just avoid questions like that. And there's other ways you can ask that without, triggering emotions and finding the answer and not being offensive. And so I think that if we're just a little bit more considerate, that other people are probably going through the same thing. And also, if you are going through the same thing, speak up, because there might be a friend of yours who's gone through the same thing, and you both could be helping each other out or confiding each other, but you don't know because you're not sharing. When I shared the blog post about the miscarriage, there were so many people that responded that I didn't know had gone through it, who I could have been texting or, using as support through the moment and through that first month or second month after. And so, man, I didn't know. Not only would I wish that they could have supported me, but I wish that I could have supported them, whether it was, sending flowers, taking them a meal, or whatever. So I think it's best if we're open with each other, but we're also considerate not to just jump to that standard question of, when are you going to have more kids? Because maybe they've been trying already. So another thing that I want to console you guys with is that the waves of these emotions may knock you down, but you will make it through. You'll make it through the holidays. You'll make it through the miscarriage date. You'll make it through the due date. If you made it that far, you'll make it. And maybe it doesn't look pretty. Maybe it won't be easy, but you will make it. And, you might feel crushed. You might feel scared. You might feel confused because, these are just crazy emotions. But I think the important thing is that no one can judge you for the way that you heal. No one can judge you for the way that you move on. I know that maybe like a month later after my loss, I had already paid for a retreat for business, like the earlier in the year. And so it was coming up, and I was like, man, I really don't want to go, because what are people going to think when I'm dancing or jumping around or smiling? Like, am I not supposed to smile now? And it hurt. Like, even though it was just like this internal conflict of, I'm already hurting inside because I'm smiling, or I'm thinking about it less. And then now I'm going to have these pictures to the world show that I'm going somewhere and I'm, doing this or doing that. And then all I'm going to feel is judgment. And when I did it, it was really good for myself, and I didn't feel judged at all. I think that we just kind of get wrapped up in our heads of, what are people going to think? And honestly, who cares? Like, who cares what people think? You just need to do what you need to do for you. And I think that you need to, find yourself again after you suffer a loss, because we get wrapped up in these feelings and it's hard for us to move on. And I don't mean like, go back to acting normal. I just mean find yourself and what you need. Take care of yourself. Just really look internally and say, okay, what do I need? What do I need to do? How can I move on from this and not forget? That's an important thing, is moving on is not forgetting. There is no way that I could ever forget. But just find a version of yourself that's different from before the loss, but you again. And then I think maybe the last thing would be to consider that everybody grieves differently, like I said, but men grieve vastly different from women just naturally. And we also have different natural instincts despite our genders to grieve. So you may want to be completely alone dealing with all your feelings, and their way of dealing with it may be to get super involved and be surrounded by people. There is no right or wrong way, and it could be flip-flopped, right? Like, you could feel that way and he could feel the opposite way of, wanting to be alone and just with himself, with his feelings. But I think men have a unique position in the loss of a miscarriage because it's not their body. They don't get the hormones. Their body isn't affected. They don't see their body have the change. And I once read a man recounting his experience through that, and it said, at the same time, it is easy to feel at a loss. Men don't experience the hormonal changes or the physical reality of the pregnancy. We suffer our loss secondhand because we only get to live the experience by proxy. For us, the pain is real and also not real. So if you're dealing with this loss a year from now and he's not responding to the same, date coming up that you've been dreading the same way as you, I think it's totally fine, as long as you guys understand each other, like that you guys are just sorting through it on your own in your own way, and you can support each other in that and in the ways that you need to be supported. So to end out my thoughts, I just want to say to you guys who are listening that if you've experienced a miscarriage and you've decided to try again and you're in this waiting period and it's scary because you don't want to experience this again, or for those of you who had a miscarriage and you tried again and then you experienced another loss, I'm just praying for you guys. Hope that you know that it's okay to go easy on yourself, as best as you can, but don't feel like you are at fault, which is really hard to do because it's your body, right? And you feel like your body was made to protect this human being growing inside of you. And then when it fails, you feel like you failed it, like it was your fault. And a lot of these things are out of our hands, guys. Like a lot of these things, there was like, we could all day say, if I had done this, I would have been, which I was in the same situation. If I had gone to my doctor sooner, that was specific medicines that they needed to give me having an autoimmune disease to help the baby survive. But I waited until like the next appointment. I guess, we just didn't communicate well enough. And so I could go back in my head and say, had I gone sooner, had I ignored the receptionist who just made me an appointment in 2 weeks or whatever, had I gone sooner, had I gotten these things in place, like I could have prevented it. And you can do this all day to yourself and you're not going to feel any better. So it's not going to help you to moving on. It's not going to help you feel closure. And in 20, 30 years, you may not even still feel closure. It just might be a part of your journey that you just have learned to find peace with, or maybe you don't, and maybe it's a date that rolls around every year and you still struggle with. And I feel like wherever you are, ask for help, reach out to somebody to talk to. Know that you're not alone, because 1 in 5 pregnancies, or 1 in 4 actually, typically result in a miscarriage. And so when you think about how many friends you have, how many women are in the world, we've all experienced it. Maybe not all of us, but most of us. It's going to happen. Like those odds just make it to where you are surely to know somebody who's experienced it. And maybe you need to talk about it with them if they're open to talking about it with you. But I just hope that you get what you need in your journey, in your healing, in your process. I hope that you have the support that you need in this journey. And I just really encourage you to, like I said, reach out, find books to talk about it, find support groups. I know that there's a lot of Facebook ones, but I think the most important thing is just to go easy on yourself, give yourself grace, give yourself freedom to feel all the things, and give yourself the freedom to heal in the way that you need to be healed. Give yourself freedom for the judgment from other people that may or may not actually be really going on. We might just be assuming that this is how people are going to judge us, and so we don't do these things. But man, you just need to do what you need to do to get through, to move on, and never forget, but also find healing. As for myself, I'm really grateful that this podcast is an outlet for me. This has been my processing as I'm talking, and it's helping me. And I've gotten to the place where I can give myself freedom to feel each day with whatever wave of emotion that it's going to be like. And my faith is one of the things that is getting me through in the most amount possible and helping me to process and find peace and cope with all of it. And so that is something that I'm holding on to very strongly, as well as the support from my husband and being able to talk to him about it and just my thoughts about it, because on different days you feel different emotions and you have different emotional responses. And so we're just going through it day by day and handling it day by day, honestly. And for me, we also planted a tree in honor of our baby. And so that is something that visually, something beautiful that represents our child, is healing for me. And I'm very protective over this tree. And so that is something that I think has helped me cope with it. And, just also being able to share it with you guys and knowing that I'm not alone, even if, it's not a person-to-person talk or conversation. But that has been really nice. Also, my sister-in-law got me bracelets. And so every now and then, I think on hard days, I gravitate to wearing those more because it helps me. So that is where I'm at a year after loss. So I hope that if you're listening to this and you can relate, or you find yourself in these same places, that some of these things that I've hashed out in my mind and on this podcast has helped you in some way. If it hasn't, let me know. Like maybe you have tips for how you've healed, and I would love to maybe create a post in the It Takes a Village Tribe Facebook group, and we can kind of talk about these because there may be some things that you've done that other people haven't thought of that could really help them out. And so I would love to give an opportunity in that space to provide help for each other. So don't forget to review and rate this podcast on iTunes. And also, I hope you guys tune in next week. Bye, guys.